The story begins not with a heroic stand or a noble sacrifice, but with the frantic splashing of water on the cold stone floor of the 6th floor boys' bathroom. Two rivals stand at the edge of a precipice, their wands trembling with 6 years of accumulated loathing. In the original timeline, Severus Snape arrives just in time to knit Draco Malfoy's flesh back together, saving 2 souls from the point of no return. But in this reality, Snape's intervention doesn't happen. Harry Potter watches in a paralysed, ringing silence as the Sectumsempra curse does exactly what it was designed to do. It carves a path of jagged, unstoppable ruin through Draco's chest. As the light leaves Malfoy's eyes, the ripples of the murder spread instantly through the castle's magical foundations. Somewhere in the dungeons, the unbreakable vow triggers with a lethal silent snap, and Severus Snape collapses, his life extinguished by the very oath meant to protect the boy now lying in a pool of crimson. The Ministry of Magic arrives before the school can even process the tragedy. Led by Rufus Scrimgeour, who sees a PR nightmare he can transform into a political masterpiece. He offers Harry a choice: the truth and a cell, or a small white lie and the title of a hero. At first, Harry's soul recoils. He wants to say no, to confess to the accident that took a life. But then a voice in his head, cold, clear, and unlike anything he has ever heard, tells him not to throw away his future over a boy who was already a monster. The voice whispers that he was acting in self-defense against a Death Eater. Harry looks at the blood on his hands, and with a heavy, reluctant nod, he agrees to become the Ministry's mascot. The boy who lived accepts the protection of the state, and the first crack in his soul begins to widen. In the weeks that follow the incident, Harry is a hollow version of himself, haunted by the memory of the bathroom floor and the sound of a spell he never should have cast. He tells Ron and Hermione repeatedly that it was a horrible accident, that he was just trying to defend himself and had no idea the magic would be lethal. He expects the world to see him as a monster, but instead the Ministry surrounds him with cameras and headlines that call him a saviour. The tension at Hogwarts peaks when Hermione discovers Harry still has the Half-Blood Prince's textbook. When she sees the words for enemies scrawled next to the spell, she doesn't accuse him of being a murderer, but she is terrified by his recklessness. She tries to get him to talk about the guilt, believing that if they face the truth together, they can save him. But for Harry, the truth is unbearable. If it wasn't a heroic act, as the Ministry claims, then he is just a boy who accidentally killed a classmate. To survive the weight of his own conscience, Harry begins to lean into Rufus Scrimgeour's narrative. When Hermione pushes him to take responsibility, he snaps, using the Ministry's talking points as a shield. He tells her that he doesn't have time to regret the death of a Death Eater when there is a war to win. He argues that whether he knew the spell's effects or not doesn't matter, because the result, stopping a threat, was what the wizarding world needed. As the weeks pass, Rufus Scrimgeour recognizes that to truly own the Chosen One, he must first strip away the influence of the man who built him. He notices that Albus Dumbledore has become a ghost within his own castle, rarely seen and whispered to be suffering from a mysterious, rapidly advancing illness that no one can explain. Taking Harry aside into the private, soundproof chambers of the Ministry, Scrimgeour probes the boy for information, asking if the headmaster is hiding secrets that could end the war. Secrets that Dumbledore is now too weak or too secretive to use himself. Feeling the weight of his isolation from Ron and Hermione, and desperate for a purpose that justifies his survival, Harry finally reveals the truth Dumbledore had shared in confidence: the existence of the Horcruxes. He explains that Voldemort has anchored his soul to objects, and that these must be destroyed for the Dark Lord to fall. Scrimgeour seizes this information not as a burden, but as the ultimate political weapon. He immediately places Harry at the head of a specialised team of elite Aurors, charged with a singular, high-priority mission to hunt down these soul fragments. For the first time, Harry isn't just a student following a teacher's cryptic clues. He is a commander with the full resources of the state at his back. As he leads his first raids, the hollow guilt he once felt in the bathroom is replaced by a dark, intoxicating rush of authority. With a hand-picked team of elite Aurors at his back, Harry begins the hunt for the Horcruxes with a cold military efficiency that the Order of the Phoenix never possessed. Their first major breakthrough comes with the retrieval of a fake locket, leading Harry to dive into the restricted Ministry archives to solve the riddle of the initials RAB. He quickly identifies the man as Regulus Arcturus Black. Harry leads a sanctioned raid on Grimmauld Place. He doesn't ask for the locket, he commands it, seizing the artifact from a terrified creature before it can be lost to the black market. The success of the mission only reinforces Harry's belief that his methods are superior to Dumbledore's old patient ways. As the hunt intensifies, Harry turns his focus towards Gringotts Bank, suspecting that Voldemort's obsession with prestige would have led him to hide a soul shard within its high-security vaults. He attempts to seize the records of the bank's comings and goings, but he is met with a firm wall of bureaucracy and goblin treaties. He is told that such an investigation is a violation of wizarding rights and ancient privacy laws, a sentiment that Harry now views as a dangerous hindrance to the war effort. Instead of backing down, Harry goes directly to Rufus Scrimgeour. He argues that the old laws were written for times of peace, not for a survival struggle against a monster. He proposes a radical new special measures law, one that would grant the Ministry the power to investigate anyone, anywhere, and at any time in the name of national security. Scrimgeour, seeing a way to cement their absolute control over the wizarding world, enthusiastically agrees to work on passing the legislation. In the midst of the political manoeuvring, the silence from the Highlands is finally broken. A message arrives from Hogwarts. Albus Dumbledore has requested Harry's presence immediately. Harry looks at the summons with a clinical detachment, knowing that while he's been building a new world, the old one is waiting for its final reckoning. Harry enters the headmaster's office not as a student, but as a commander of the Ministry's elite. His heavy boots clicking against the stone floor, while the silver instruments on the tables hum in a frantic, disjointed rhythm. Albus Dumbledore is a shadow of his former self, his blackened hand a constant visible reminder of the curse that is rapidly claiming his life. Instead of the cold questioning Harry expected, the headmaster speaks with a quiet, heartbreaking tenderness. He addresses the accident in the bathroom, telling Harry that he knows the weight of the secret he has been carrying. Dumbledore whispers that Draco's death was a tragedy born of panic, not malice, and he implores Harry to set aside the Ministry's lies and come back to the light, before the darkness consumes him entirely. For a brief, shimmering moment, the Chosen One mask shatters. Harry finally allows himself to feel the crushing weight of the bathroom floor, and under Dumbledore's gentle gaze, he chooses to believe him. He forgives himself, feeling a surge of the old, pure hope he hasn't felt since the year began. The tension in the room softens as Harry begins to speak freely, sharing the progress of his hunt with a renewed sense of partnership. He tells the headmaster that his team has already secured the locket of Slytherin from Grimmauld Place, and that they are close to narrowing their search to the high-security vaults of Gringotts Bank. But as Harry speaks of his success, Dumbledore's face doesn't fill with pride. It falls into a mask of profound ancient pity. The atmosphere in the office turns frigid as the headmaster becomes deathly serious. The headmaster looks down at his blackened, withered hand and tells Harry that his own life is now measured in mere hours. He explains that with Severus Snape gone, he can no longer afford the luxury of secrets or the protection of Harry's innocence. He tells them that while the objects he has found are vital, the hunt cannot end with them. With a devastating clinical finality, Dumbledore reveals the secret that will destroy Harry's newly found peace. That Voldemort's soul was not just anchored to gold and jewellery, but to a living vessel. He looks at Harry in the eye and delivers the ultimatum that changes everything. That Harry himself is the final Horcrux, and for the Dark Lord to truly fall, the boy who lived must be the one to die. Harry doesn't see a noble sacrifice. He sees a final betrayal from a man who raised him just to die at the right moment. He is fueled by a white-hot rage that he can no longer contain. He screams he has already sacrificed his soul and killed for the cause, and now his mentor is asking him to simply lie down and die. As Dumbledore reaches out to calm him, Harry loses all restraint. He seizes Dumbledore's withered, blackened arm, and instead of pulling away in horror, he pours his own predatory fury into the wound, accelerating the dark curse already ravaging the old man's body, until it consumes him entirely. The violent surge of magic stops, leaving the office in a deafening, ringing silence. Harry stands over the corpse of the greatest wizard of the age, his hands beginning to shake with a violent tremor. The magnitude of what he has done hits him like a physical blow. He has just murdered his mentor and the only man who truly knew him. Panic sets in. His breath comes in short, jagged gasps as he looks at the portraits on the walls, wondering if they witnessed the slaughter. His eyes fall upon the Elder Wand, lying abandoned on the rug where it fell from Dumbledore's lifeless hand. Shaking with a sudden, violent guilt, Harry reaches down to pick it up, intending only to tuck it back into the headmaster's cold grip. A small, desperate attempt to undo the desecration he just committed. But the moment his fingers close around the ancient wood, the panic vanishes. He feels a sudden, violent hum of recognition. The wand doesn't just work for him, it sings for him, acknowledging a master willing to do what is necessary. The tremor in his hand stops instantly, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. He realizes that he cannot be a murderer. If he is caught, the war is lost, and his future is over. To the world, he must remain the savior. With a chillingly calculated resolve, he begins to manipulate the scene. He reaches across the desk, seizing the destroyed ring and the remnants of the diary, before carefully arranging Dumbledore's body in the chair. He smooths the silver robes and closes the headmaster's eyes to make it appear as though he passed peacefully in his sleep. By the time he steps out into the corridor, the murderer is gone, replaced by the grieving apprentice, who tells the waiting world that the headmaster has finally succumbed to his illness. Before we see how Harry handles the aftermath, I have a question for you all. Do you think Harry is justified in his anger here? I'll be the first to admit that killing Dumbledore is an extreme reaction, but in the original story, I always felt Harry should have been way more angry than he was. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and if you're enjoying this darker take on the Wizarding World, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Anyway, back to the story. Using Harry as the face of the campaign, with the special measures law passing through the Wizengamot with terrifying speed, the legal barriers of the Goblin treaties are dismantled overnight. Harry and his elite Auror team descend upon Gringotts not as customers, but as conquerors, utilising their new authority to bypass the ancient security of Bellatrix Lestrange's vault. Inside, Harry seizes Hufflepuff's cup, giving him 2 of Voldemort's Horcruxes, but the victory is hollow. He realises that despite his ministry resources, he lacks the specific ancient magic required to destroy the artifacts he has recovered. Determined to find a solution, Harry returns to Hogwarts. He is met in the courtyard by Minerva McGonagall, who greets him with the warmth of a proud mentor, assuring him that the school stands ready to provide whatever he needs for the war effort. As Ron and Hermione emerge from the crowd of students, the warmth of their reunion is immediately overshadowed by the cold professional aura Harry now carries. Before they can even exchange a greeting, Hermione brings up the special measures law that has just dismantled centuries of wizarding privacy. Her voice is laced with a mix of fear and disbelief as she asks how he could support such a blatant violation of their rights. Harry doesn't flinch. He looks at her with a detached clinical calm and asks why she considers it a problem. He tells her with a chilling lack of irony that the innocent people of the Wizarding World have nothing to fear if they truly have nothing to hide. The silence that follows is thick with tension as Hermione stares at him, searching for a trace of the friend she once knew. As she looks him over, her gaze falls to his waist, where it catches on the ancient gnarled wood of Dumbledore's wand, tucked into his belt. McGonagall, standing nearby, looks equally puzzled and disturbed by the sight. When they ask why the headmaster's personal effects are in his possession instead of being interred with him, Harry's expression hardens. He stares at Hermione for a long, silent moment before stating that the wand is now a matter of national security, and he is not at liberty to share any further information regarding its status. When McGonagall and Hermione show their dissatisfaction with this answer, Harry's patience vanishes. He cuts them off, his voice echoing through the courtyard with the weight of authority. He tells them he is there for the Sword of Gryffindor, and he warns McGonagall that if she is unwilling to surrender it, he will simply use his authority to install a headmaster who will. The shock in the courtyard is absolute. McGonagall stares at him as if he is a stranger she no longer recognises. As Harry is led toward the head of the school to claim the sword, he catches a glimpse of Ron's face, a mask of profound, shaking horror that finally realises the boy they loved has been replaced by something far more dangerous. In the days that follow, the Ministry uses the successful recovery of ancient artifacts to fuel a statewide propaganda campaign, framing every loss of privacy as a necessary sacrifice for victory. The fear of the Dark Lord is expertly pivoted into a fanatical devotion to the one man who seems capable of ending the war. This carefully manufactured momentum leads directly to the heart of the wizarding capital, where the public's desperation is finally met with the voice of absolute authority. Diagon Alley is no longer a place of wonder, it is the stage for a revolution. Harry stands before a massive surging crowd, his voice amplified by magic as he pushes for absolute ministry control to hunt the remaining Death Eaters. He stares down the public, his rhetoric cold and absolute. The people have nothing to fear if they have nothing to hide. His grip on the crowd is like iron, until a single voice cuts through the noise. Hermione Granger stands up in the middle of the crowd, her voice a mask of weary bravery as she challenges him in front of his own followers. She debates him openly, pointing out the jagged cruelty of his methods and the looming shadow of the dictatorship he is building with his new powers. For the first time, the Chosen One feels the room slipping. The crowd begins to listen, their focus shifting from Harry's promise to Hermione's logic. The tension is shattered not by words, but by a flash of brilliant green light. Narcissa Malfoy, seeking revenge for the son Harry murdered in the bathroom, strikes from the shadows of the crowd. The killing curse hits Harry squarely in the chest, and the Chosen One drops dead in front of a horrified public. Panic erupts as the saviour of the wizarding world lies still on the stage. But the tragedy turns into a terrifying miracle. Perhaps it was because Voldemort still lived, keeping the blood tether between them intact and allowing the curse to destroy the Horcrux while sparing the host. Or perhaps it was something far more ancient, that as the possessor of the cloak, the stone, and the wand, Harry stood for the first time as the true master of the Hallows, a man over whom death had no final claim. Whether it was the tether of his enemy, his own mastery of death, or a dark convergence of both, the result was a display that defied every known law of nature. Harry gasps back to life and stands up, casually brushing the dust from his robes as he shrugs off a curse that no wizard is meant to survive. The silence that follows is deafening, a vacuum of shock that quickly fills with a terrifying new energy. The crowd doesn't just cheer, they fall to their knees in a wave of fanatical worship. He is no longer just a hero to them, he is an immortal god. Hermione watches in horror as her voice of reason is drowned out by a cult of personality. Realizing the war of words is lost, Harry is now truly untouchable. Harry stops being the Ministry's mascot and starts becoming its architect. He adopts a ruthless dictator mindset, taking over the war effort with a cold efficiency that leaves the old guard of the Ministry both awestruck and terrified. He is no longer interested in disarming his enemies. He becomes known for using unforgivable curses on the battlefield, justifying his cruelty as the only way to ensure total victory. Any critic or journalist who dares to question the Chosen One's methods is swiftly silenced, their reputations dismantled by a Ministry press machine that Harry now effectively controls. But while the public sees a saviour, those who loved him see the rogue monster he has become. Hermione, Ron and Ginny watch from the sidelines as Harry drifts further into a darkness they can no longer reach. They realise that the boy they grew up with is gone, replaced by a man who views morality as a weakness. Refusing to stand by while he tears the wizarding world apart, they reform the Order of the Phoenix. This time, however, they aren't just fighting Voldemort. They are positioning themselves to publicly and politically oppose the very boy they once risked their lives to protect. The miracle on the stage of Diagon Alley fundamentally breaks the wizarding world's perception of reality. Harry is no longer viewed as a talented young wizard or even a political leader. To the public, he is a messiah who has conquered the finality of death. Now free of the Horcrux that has clouded his mind and anchored his soul to his enemy, Harry moves with a terrifying unburdened clarity that makes his previous ruthlessness look like hesitation. Before the final hunt of Voldemort begins, Harry's team of Aurors tracks the diadem of Ravenclaw back to the very halls where his journey started. He arrives at the gates of Hogwarts not as a student, but as a conqueror, demanding immediate entry without cause or explanation. When the staff hesitates, Harry's lead Aurors cites the new special measures laws, making it clear that the Chosen One needs no justification to move within his own borders. As he strides through the entrance hall, a group of students fall to their knees. bowing at his feet in an act of fanatical worship. When Harry learns that Minerva McGonagall had strictly banned any such displays of reverence within the school, his reaction is one of cold, calculated fury. He publicly declares that he is freeing the student body from the tyranny of their headmistress, using the moment to strip her of her position. In her place, Harry approaches Horace Slughorn. The old professor initially refuses the appointment, his hands trembling at the sight of the boy he once taught. But Harry leans in and whispers of the prestige, the protection, and the connections that only the Ministry's sovereign can provide. Manipulated by his own greed and fear, Slughorn accepts, becoming little more than Harry's puppet at the head of the school. With Hogwarts and the diadem secured, Harry launches his own purge, hunting down Voldemort with the relentless efficiency of an apex predator. He kills Nagini, but he does not kill the Dark Lord in the shadows. He overpowers and captures him using the Elder Wand, dragging the broken monster back to the heart of the wizarding world. The final confrontation is not a duel, but a massive public execution designed to show the world that the old powers of darkness are nothing compared to the new light. Harry slaughters Voldemort before a screaming, adoring crowd, proving once and for all that the Dark Lord was never his equal. In the wake of the public execution, the air in the Ministry atrium remains thick with the scent of victory and the deafening rhythmic chanting of Harry's name. Rufus Scrimgeour approaches Harry amidst the smouldering ruins of the old world, his face etched with a greedy, short-sighted triumph. He congratulates the Chosen One, believing that his protégé has finally cleared the board for them to rule together. Scrimgeour offers a formal partnership, a duopoly that would allow them to maintain the special privacy measure laws and control the wizarding world indefinitely. But as Scrimgeour speaks of shared power and political stability, Harry looks at him with a clinical, detached coldness. He realizes that with Albus Dumbledore and Lord Voldemort both dead by his hand or his design, there is no one left in the magical world with the strength or the standing to check his will. The Minister, once a mentor and a protector, has become nothing more than a bureaucratic obstacle to the absolute order Harry intends to build. Harry doesn't bother with an argument or a legal challenge. He overthrows Scrimgeour in a single, decisive stroke of wordless magic, casting the man aside before the very crowd that had just watched him slaughter a Dark Lord. There is no protest from the Aurors or the public. They simply watch in a state of terrified awe as the power shift completes. The final ascension is not marked by a crown, but by a chilling absolute order that settles over the Ministry of Magic like a shroud. Following the public execution of Voldemort and the swift removal of Scrimgeour, Harry Potter has been installed as the youngest Minister for Magic in history. The heavy doors of the Ministry's office, once occupied by men who tried to control him, swing open to reveal Hermione Granger. She is brought in not as a prisoner, but as a ghost of the life Harry left behind. Harry sits behind the massive desk, the Elder Wand resting across his knuckles like a scepter. He looks at her not with a rage of a dictator, but with a terrifying, calm affection. He offers her a seat at his right hand, his voice smooth and devoid of the tide of anger that once defined him. He tells her that he is finally making the world a better place, arguing that Scrimgeour was merely an ambitious politician who was destined to dominate and manipulate the population anyway. Harry claims that by seizing the office, he has saved the people from that cycle of corruption. Harry leans forward, revealing his true vision for the future. He tells her that the very act of voting for politicians is a dangerous flaw, a weakness that allows anyone to manipulate the public into chaos. He declares that to truly protect the wizarding world, the cycle of elections must end. He informs her with a haunting, level-headed calm he has already put the motion to the Wizengamot to dissolve the office of Minister and replace it with a permanent sovereign. The vote passed without a single objection. Hermione does not look at the gold leaf on the walls or the shadow he casts. She looks directly into his eyes that are clear of the Horcruxes' influence, yet colder than Voldemort's ever were. She tells him that Narcissa Malfoy was right to strike him in the alley. She whispers that the boy who once fought for justice died on that stage, and whatever stood back up is a stranger wearing her friend's face. Harry's gaze doesn't waver, and a faint, hollow smile touches his lips. He tells her that he actually died long before Diagon Alley. He confesses that the boy she knew died in a flooded bathroom, a scared child who was crushed by the weight of a title he never asked for, and who took Draco Malfoy's life just to survive the burden. When Hermione refuses his offer, she stands tall and declares that she will oust his plan, that the people will see him for what he is and rise up to fight. Harry does not shout, he does not cast a curse, he simply watches her, his silence more terrifying than any threat. He tells her to look around the ministry, to look at the people in the streets, and to realise that there is no one left to fight. The people are happy with the way things are. As Hermione disappears into the shadows of the corridor, the silence of the office is replaced by a low, rhythmic hum of a city at peace. The banners of the Ministry of Magic, once symbols of a fractured and fearful democracy, now hang heavy and still, reimagined as the sigils of an undisputed, eternal empire. Below in the streets, the wizarding public moves with a sense of collective purpose, their faces lit not by the fire of rebellion, but by the calm, fanatical glow of devotion to a saviour who can never die. In the heart of it all, Harry Potter remains seated, his shadow stretching long across the floor of an office that has become a throne room. He is the master of death, the sovereign of the wizarding world, and the architect of a silence so absolute that even the memory of resistance has begun to fade. The boy who lived died on that bathroom floor, replaced by a master of death who traded his morality for an eternal crown. Harry Potter didn't just defeat Voldemort, he became a sovereign over a world that willingly chose the comfort of a dictator over the chaos of freedom. If you enjoyed this dark reimagining of the wizarding world, please leave a like and subscribe for more what-if stories. Let me know in the comments, do you think Hermione was right to walk away, or would you have accepted the Emperor's peace? Thank you so much for watching, see you in the next video.